Welcome back to Red Devils TV. This is your Manchester United versus Newcastle preview. Now, that Galatasaray game was unacceptable and massive changes need to happen. And in this video, I'm going to be dissecting the changes that I think Ten Hag should be making for our trip to St James's Park. But before we get into today's video, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new as we continue our road to 1,000 subscribers, and comment down below on your score predictions, how you think Manchester United can defeat Newcastle, and maybe we might get absolutely spanked like we did in the EFL Cup. But anyway, let's get right into the video. So we can only go off over our last game, and Galatasaray and Manchester United drew 3-3 with them in the Champions League. Now, first of all, I want to talk about our Champions League form because it's been massively unacceptable, and no doubt we are definitely out of the Champions League. Maybe we can scrape Europa League in 2 weeks' time when we do face Bayern Munich, but I'm not getting my hopes up, realistically. And when the draw first announced and Man United were put in a group with Bayern Munich, and we had Galatasaray and Copenhagen, we kind of rubbed our hands together. We got a bit too confident and said, you know what, we should be easily getting second place. Maybe we could push Bayern Munich for first place. But here we are struggling in the Champions League. And when Newcastle were drawn in the group of death with the likes of PSG and Dortmund and Milan, you know, we all laughed at them and said they've not got a chance. But boy, have they stepped up and proved us all wrong. Now, I'll give massive credit to Eddie Howe. I think he's a very underrated manager. I said at the start of the season he'd be one of the first managers to get sacked. I feel like the Champions League was too cut out for him. But he silenced me and many other Premier League fans who don't support Newcastle because Eddie Howe is just getting better and better. You know, I spoke to Newcastle fans. You remember Ethan, who was on here a few months ago when we had the preview for the EFL Cup? He turned around and said to me, which I won't forget, and he turned around and said to me that Eddie Howe has been labelled as a terrible manager, that he's not ever managed a Premier League club that's competed for leagues or managed a club in the Champions League, but he's never had the opportunity to. And you know what? He's spot on because Eddie Howe is taking that opportunity and showing that his tactics do work. Now, considering that Newcastle haven't had any European football for donkey's years, and now they're in the Champions League, the best European competition in the world, they're doing pretty well. And even if they drop down to the Europa League, that's still a success, in my opinion, for them, because when you're put in the group of death with the likes of Dortmund, PSG and Milan, you kind of are the underdogs. And Newcastle are a very, very decent club, and they have a lot of passion in their team. Now, the positive, though, they do have a massive injury crisis. So United, we've kind of, you know, our injuries are now starting to come back, which is a massive plus. And this is where I want to talk about what we need to do to beat Newcastle at St James's Park. First of all, Onana stays in net for me. Now, I want to talk about Onana because that game against Galatasaray was absolutely disgraceful. Galatasaray hardly did anything to earn them goals. The 2 free kicks that we conceded were completely on Onana, and he is a strong character, and no doubt he will bounce back. But the amount of goals he's conceded, I think it's 12 goals we've conceded in the Champions League, is because of mistakes that he has made. It's been terrible, his performance in the Champions League. And I know statistically in the Premier League he's joint clean sheet record holder with Sam Johnson for Crystal Palace. I think it's 5 clean sheets we've had, but that's a bit of a myth because the amount of goals we have conceded this season. You know, the clean sheets we've had, apart from Everton, which was 3-0, which is probably our best performance in the Premier League this season, it's just been 1-0s, and that's where our clean sheets have built up and up and up. But David De Gea, right, we need to address the elephant in the room, because David De Gea, we had a goalkeeper who was a veteran to the club, who was still one of the best shot stoppers in world football, and he got 17 clean sheets last season. But what happened? We let the goalkeeper go for free, who had just become the Premier League, Golden Glove winner, and we go and spend £50 million on a goalkeeper to play out from the back. And this goalkeeper was supposed to be better than David De Gea. So all the stat merchants and all the people who love modern day football, we need a goalkeeper who can pass out from the back. We need a goalkeeper that claims crosses. We need this, we need that in our goalkeeper. Onana's worse than David De Gea. I know he can kick the ball far. I know he can make a good pass. But the guy gives me an heart attack every single game because I don't know if he's going to make a save. Don't know if he's going to try and do a fucking roulette pass like Erling Haaland or something to try and be cocky. He is very confident when he's got the confidence. But his style of play, when he doesn't have that confidence and doesn't have that motivation, you can see it in his performances. You can see before a shot's even taken by his positioning if he's going to save it or not, or if he stands a chance. And that's the issue with Onana at the moment. I'd still keep him in net for this game against Newcastle, but there are massive doubts over him because, you know, we have got the AFCON in January. It's now December. Hopefully everyone's eating their advent calendars. I've got a chocolate orange one, so let me know in the comments down below on what your advent calendar you've got, if you have got one. But, you know, I'm 20 years old, still got an advent calendar. Anyway, completely off topic. But with Onana, it is the AFCON in January, and there are debates if he is or isn't going. But if he does go, Bayindir, our backup goalkeeper, will be taking over his spot. And there's a lot of Manchester United coaches who do say Bayindir is a quality player. And I believe him. I've seen him in training. He's put in with the second team, but makes save after save after save. He does seem like a very good goalkeeper and is completely under the radar in this squad when it comes to first team selection. But like Antony did on Wednesday, once you get that opportunity to play, you've then got to prove to the manager, you've got to prove to Ten Hag why you deserve to stay in that spot. And when Bayindir gets his opportunity, he's one of them players, from what I've seen and what I've read about his personality, that he's a very motive player and will do anything to keep his first team spot because he's just that willing to try his best, and that's what we want to see. So competition is always good. It's competition for places. It is good for every single team, for squad, because you don't want your players getting comfortable. And I know the goalkeeping position is a massive risk because, you know, Ten Hag came in, he's replaced David De Gea. Replacing your goalkeeper after 12 years is a massive statement. I understand what Ten Hag wants to do. He wants to play out from the back. But we're not playing from the fucking back. So we should have kept David De Gea then. You know, you see Onana kicking it to Maguire. You see Onana kicking it to Shaw, you know, to help us play out from the back. So David De Gea could do that easily. I understand that Onana can kick the ball really far, but even him, he kicks it out of play every now and again, or it gets intercepted by the opposition. So Onana isn't the best goalkeeper in the world. Statistically, he's joint top goalkeeper in the Premier League because of his clean sheets. But it's not just him getting the clean sheets, it's also due to our defence, our midfield. It's a team game. So even though Onana is got the clean sheets, it's also standing down to Maguire and his exceptional performances. You know, Dalot, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, you know, Martinez at the start of the season before he got injured. So at the end of the day, Onana is a very decent goalkeeper and I back him all the way. But you've really got to raise question marks over Ten Hag on why he let De Gea go so easily, in my opinion. But anyway, I will keep Onana in this team against Newcastle, but for me, I'd say this is his last one. If he has a howler like he did against Galatasaray, I would personally drop him because we've got a massive month ahead in December and we cannot afford to lose many games because December's known as the title deciding month. It's the bang in the middle of the season. It's game after game after game. And no doubt we've got to win every single game if we want to compete and try and stay in the Champions League for next season, because the amount of competition that there is this season, the teams around the top four have really stepped up their game. I'm talking about Aston Villa, Spurs before their injury crisis, Liverpool are back, and even Liverpool don't have a proper centre defensive midfielder yet. When they do, they will be title contenders, and then they just need to sort out more squad rotation, especially in the defensive and midfield areas. But attacking wise, they've got probably the best attacking options in the league, in my opinion. I know City have Erling Haaland, but when you've got Liverpool, who have the likes of Salah, Jota, you know, Gakpo, Nunez and Diaz, all these players that Liverpool got, I think they've got the most like fearful attack in the Premier League. But again, I've gone completely off topic. But with Man United, this is how I'd set up. Onana stays in net, but this is his last one, and like I said, Wan-Bissaka stays at right back. I will put Harry Maguire in at centre-back. I think he's performing really, really well, but I would prefer Varane. I have said this, I would prefer Varane, but at the end of the day, we can't control that, so I will keep Maguire in over Varane, but I would prefer Varane. And then Luke Shaw comes in at left centre-back because this is what I was talking about with helping us pass out from the back. Newcastle are going to press us like absolute mad, so we need to have a player in the centre-back role who is very good with distribution and can clear the ball if needs be when we're getting overloaded and forced by Newcastle, because that's their style of play. They play very aggressively. And left back, I'm stuck between Reguilon and Dalot. I'm going to go with Dalot because I think he's been a bit more consistent over the last few games. Well, in the last few games where both players have played. I just feel like Reguilon really loses his space and doesn't stay back when we're attacking. I think he gets a bit too excited and intends to go a bit further forward, and he kind of gets caught out. It's a bit of a liability, especially when teams try and set up to counter-attack, which is what Newcastle will do. They won't play us off the park, but they will keep the possession high. They'll be very aggressive in their interceptions and their challenges, but as well they will set up for the counter attack, but they will also try and keep the possession high, and they'll press us on every heavy touch. That's what Newcastle are all about. They're very aggressive, like I've said. Midfield needs to change because that's where we lost the game for Galatasaray, in my opinion. I know the game was on Onana because they were very easy saves that could have been made, in my opinion, but the midfield, if you look back, Amrabat would sit in front of the defence and then he'd have to travel probably 40, 50 yards to get it to the likes of McTominay and Bruno and the other attackers. It was pathetic. There was no balance in the midfield. And that's why the game looked so open, because we didn't have that stable midfield. But Amrabat, for me, stays in and keeps his place as the number 6 player. McTominay, I know he's been scoring goals, but I've said it from day one. He's an impact player. Bring him off the bench when we need a goal. But as a player in the starting 11, I don't know why he's still in here, because he offers nothing apart from scoring goals. He has the least amount of touches per game, the least amount of passes, probably one of the shortest passing accuracies. I love McTominay when it comes to him scoring goals, and I think he's a massive player for this squad, but he's an impact player. Bring him off the bench when you need him to change the game. That's what McTominay does best, when you need him to drive forward into the opposition's box. That's when you get the best out of McTominay. But playing in a possession-based system, that's why we're not dominating midfields at the moment. Because you've got the likes of McTominay, who hardly has any touches, hardly has any passes. Give him the ball and he will score goals. He's a very good, box-driven, midfielder when it comes to them scoring them goals. But he can't track his own shadow. Defensively, he's poor. He doesn't really win many aerial duels, considering he's 6'3", 6'4", whatever he is. I like McTominay, but I think he needs to drop to the bench, and I would replace him with Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo was perfect against Everton. He really stood out. Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, every single ex-Man United legend, and even other Sky Sports pundits were praising how good Kobbie was. And I think Ten Hag has managed him really, really well. You know, he gave him the time he needed against Everton, around 70 minutes. He brought him on against Galatasaray, and he did really well. He didn't really, I think it was a bit too big of an occasion for him at that moment in time, but he still stood out and still had decisive moments, you know, making them passes to the forwards. He was very good with the link-up play, and our midfield got a lot more compact when Kobbie was on that field. So Kobbie hopefully does return. I know he was took off for Amrabat, but I'd like to see that double pivot partnership of Mainoo and Amrabat. And obviously Bruno Fernandes, our captain, stays as the number 10 position. And then Antony, I'm going to say it, he had a really good game against Galatasaray, and I would keep him in the team. I'd drop Marcus Rashford. I'll say that because even though Antony had a very good game against Galatasaray, you know how I feel about Antony. I do want him gone, but again, like I said, against Galatasaray, I ate my own words, and that was the best performance I'd seen Antony in a Manchester United shirt. But Rashford, his form is unacceptable. He needs to be dropped. That's just my opinion. Bring him off the bench, and maybe you can get a bit more out of him. But do I think Ten Hag will drop him? Absolutely not. I think Antony will return to the bench, and Rashford will play on the right wing. Garnacho on the left as normal, and then Rasmus Højlund as well through the middle. I think that's the team that we need to defeat Newcastle, because the defence is sorted, the midfield is sorted, and with players like Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, they're very aggressive, and we've got to be careful of how physical they are. So maybe it might be a bit too big of an occasion for someone like Mainoo, but I think with his technical ability and his calmness, he won't get bullied that easy. And with the likes of Amrabat, who's an absolute psychopath at times, I think he'll cover Mainoo very, very well. But that's the team that I'd go for. And yeah, I'd say that I will happily take a draw right now against Newcastle. I will say that because Newcastle are a very decent team. I know we're above them in the league by points, but Newcastle are the better performing team at the moment. But due to their injury crisis, they have really dropped a few points, and that's where they stand at the league, in the league where they currently sit. But I'm not going to predict how Newcastle set up because I don't know what players are out, what players are in, whatever. But I know Joe Linton will play. I know the likes of Isak will play or Callum Wilson. So we've got to be careful on their counter-attack and we've got to be careful in that midfield. So having someone like Amrabat for that physicality is needed against a team like Newcastle. But anyway, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new. Leave a like on the video. Comment down below what you think of the upcoming game against Newcastle. Thank you for watching. You're all absolute legends. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.